like when push comes to
The
shove.
Thunder aren't paying the tax.
Now, as of right now, and same thing with the Pacers, like if they're going to want to keep their cores together, they're going to have to decide,
Right. Like
obviously.
right now, Minnesota's a taxpayer. New York is a taxpayer. But to be honest, neither of these teams over the last, I don't know, call it 10 years, has
15
taxpayer.
Yeah.
They haven't been heavy taxpayers. The Knicks did not pay. I'll pull it up. In terms of tax.
Yeah, because wasn't that the whole Jeremy Lin thing?
Tax calc.
Was a tax reason.
If we look at Minnesota, they paid $500,000 in tax in 2019-20, which is also a year where the tax kickback was at a minimum. So it was basically the easiest year to pay the tax. They didn't pay the tax any other year until 24-25. So they're finally paying the tax, but they've always avoided it. The Knicks have not paid the tax dating back to 2014-15 until this last year, 24-25. So for both the Timberwolves and the Knicks, this is new territory for them to be in the tax. Like this year, his money kicked in, right? And JD McDaniels' money kicked in. So now they're in the tax. Plus they got out of Cat, which is in part why the Knicks have gotten to this point. So we're talking about teams that have habitually stayed out of the tax, that are now taxpayers because they feel like they have a reason to win. So there's a correlation and causation effect. Like in theory, you shouldn't pay tax unless you are at a point where you believe you can win. And so were they not able to win because they weren't paying tax, or were they not paying tax because they weren't ready to win and they chose not to? So it's all relative to each thing. But if we look at the last time the Hawks paid the tax was 2011-12. So, and I don't have the number in front of me, but I have it. That's the last time they paid. The Celtics have consistently paid the tax. The Nets chose to pay the tax when they had the KD thing, and they've been willing to pay the tax historically. But the Hornets never. Chicago did pay the tax last in 15-16. It's been a long time. So even the argument against Reinsdorf, he did pay the tax twice. Since 2011, he paid 2012-13, 2015-16. Cleveland showed it was willing to pay the tax in the LeBron era, showing again they're willing to pay the tax now that they have a chance to win. Dallas has almost always avoided it, but they did pay it in 22-23.
But this is different owners though too.
Yeah, and then Denver never paid the tax until they got to this level. So Detroit never paid the tax in this period of time, dating back to 2011. Golden State obviously has been a heavy payer, but Houston paid it once in 2015-16, and they did have an ownership change, if anything, to an owner that seems less willing to spend. The Clippers have been willing. The Lakers have been willing. There's cries that the Lakers are cheap. They're so cheap. What? They're one of the highest spending teams. I don't know. I mean, they're cheap in some ways, arguably, but those are more subtle ways. They're not cheap in talent, paying for talent. Miami paid a little bit of tax, not a lot.
They don't seem to be a tax team unless, like you said, there's a team that seems
if
only incentivized. Yeah.
Milwaukee in the Giannis era has been a tax team. New York, as I said, New Orleans, not at all. OKC was a tax team when they were at a higher level before. They're heading towards the tax now. Once you're paying Chet and Jalen, you'll be in the tax. Orlando never pays the tax.
Could they be one?
No, never. No, they never paid the tax.
Well, they're the team that seems to be, or at least
might have to.
Yeah,
probably are now at this point.
Especially also, they seem to be a team that's going to be not hunting for a star, but I remember you the one who brought up Simons to me that
I hear Simons might extend. At least that's where that's going. It looks like Portland and him are getting closer to that kind of approach.
Oh, okay.
That's the buzz I've heard. I have Tyus Jones going to Orlando. That's my.
Oh yeah, the Tyus Jones, Gary Trent, Daniel Gafford.
I think Tyus Jones has more legs to it. I theorized that connect Tyus Jones, Gary Trent Jr. would be 3 shooting additions, minus Jett Howard, minus Cole Anthony. And we'll see what that comes to be. Phoenix under Sarver was super cheap. Then they got to the point where Now they're competing. They've been paying the tax.
What's your thoughts there
Will some teams
Gregory?
pay the tax? Yeah, we'll see where it goes. Portland paid the tax a couple of years. Sacramento never pays the tax. San Antonio paid the tax last in 2015, 16. No, yeah. So they haven't paid the tax in a really long time, but also they haven't been good in a long time. Toronto paid the tax just that 1 year, the 1 year that they won the title. So that was worthwhile for them. Utah paid the tax briefly, never paid the tax. Then they kind of escalated into it and then got back out. And then the Wizards, that last year of Beal Wall, when they were still just kind of competitive, they paid a $7 million tax. So any teams I left out aren't paying tax. I think that's all 30. But it just gives you an idea of like, we're hitting the Clippers, we're hitting the Lakers, we're hitting the Bucks because they've been paying the tax. We're hitting the Warriors, we're hitting the Wolves, we're hitting the Knicks, teams that are projected to be high spenders. We have to curb them, because if we don't, then the teams spend too much. If the teams spend too much, then the players don't get their full 100% of their money. The agents don't get their full commission. It's a little bit of a weird time where we had this new TV deal. So for a couple of years, it's a little bit less relevant. But by and large, you have to curb spending. Otherwise, the system isn't healthy. And you could say, well, let's not, like Lacob wanted to not get taxed for paying the guys they drafted, like Steph. And well, then are you going to promise to not also spend on other guys? No, of course not. They want to also spend on other. They want to pay the tax. They want to win. They want to spend as much as they can. So if teams are spending too much, the system doesn't work. If teams aren't spending enough, the system doesn't work. And we have new rules on that. The same rules that people are yelling at, the league and the CBA and all this, they're not yelling about the floor or the minimum team salary. That is why Bruce Brown got paid as much as he got, which is why Tobias Harris got as much as he got, which also helped the Pistons win. Mm-hmm. So, like, we have a different system. There are pros that are very healthy that the players and the NBPA negotiated into the deal that helps them. And if we're splitting the money 50-50, does it matter that we're saying some teams can't spend as much as they possibly want through trades and through flexibility when the players are still going to get the same amount of money? We're saying we need it to be done differently, and we need to curb the spending so that it doesn't get too high, because if it gets too high, the players don't get that anyway. So if teams are exceeding the rules, that doesn't help. We need it to be spread out. We need the money to be equal to 50% of what is BRI. And if it's not, then everybody on some level loses. Either the teams have to shell out extra money they didn't want to spend. Of course, they're making more, but they're shelling out more. Or the players are giving back more, and no one wants it. And it, like for LeBron over 20 years or so, it all averages out. But for somebody who's in the league 3 or 4 years and is just earning now, even on a two-way, you're only getting 90% of your money on a two-way. The two-way's only got 91%. This is not a lot of money relative to what someone who's in the league for 20 years will make. So it's not great that you're not making all your money when you're barely here. And that the bulk of the players, if you say like, it's like a pyramid, your top players like LeBron and Steph are around for 15, 20 years. And then, you have some guys like Taj Gibson who are around a long time.
Yeah.
Udonis Haslem, whatever. But like most guys, the biggest part of the pyramid of NBA players are only in the league 3 or 4 years, 5 years, whatever. And that might not even be a full year. That might even be a couple of 10 days or a two-way where you didn't earn. We're talking hundreds of thousands, not millions and millions. And while, we're all watching this and, I would love to be on an NBA team and make $500,000 to just never play. We're talking about the NBA economy. Within that economy, $500,000 is nothing. When the minimum is $1 million or $1.2 million this year or whatever, it is, it's 500 isn't even that. So we need the system to be healthy. The selective outrage on how it's terrible and the new deal's terrible is usually just based on people not knowing the system. Again, I won't sit here and say it's perfect because it's, I have areas of weakness. I'm watching and monitor things I don't love, but the apron system is like, you can't have teams just spend at these highest levels. constantly, because if they don't care and there's no ceiling, then it's one or two teams is going to cost everybody else 10% of their money, or in the range
Yeah.
of 10% of their money. That's crazy, right?
No, and
I don't want the Warriors and the Clippers to cost my player, if I'm an agent, and my wallet 10%. That doesn't make any sense.
yeah, of course. And to speak of salary curbing, this is kind of like the last thing I really want to talk about.